Hello and welcome to my first post-election overview video on the results of the presidential election of 2024. My name is John Toffelmeyer. In today's video, I'm going to talk about how Trump won the popular vote. Very interesting. He won the popular vote. He's going to win the popular vote. I'm going to give you my estimation of what I think that's final number, roughly a final number is going to be. And what I'm going to focus on here in this video is the shift in Hispanic and Black vote, which had especially Hispanic, but also Black community as well, big impacts. And as part of that story about Black shift, not just Black shift, but I'm going to talk about other stuff, how Kamala Harris lost Michigan. How did she lose Michigan? So with that in mind, let's go. And to my national popular vote estimation. And when all is said and done, and these are numbers, there's still a lot of vote that's left to be counted. Most importantly, in California. California is notoriously slow in counting votes. They've only counted 60% at 2 days after the election. They really have a lackadaisical attitude towards tabulating votes. Other states are lagging too. Arizona is still a bit behind, not as bad. Utah is lagging. Washington State not quite as bad as California, but still only in the 70s. Oregon, I think, is still maybe roughly 80%. So there's still a lot of vote to be cast. So if you look at the actual figure now, that's not what it's going to look like at the end. And I think there's going to be about a 2-point margin, and it's about a 3 million vote margin, roughly 3.2 million a vote margin. Trump's going to win the popular vote. He's going to win by about 2 points. So what's interesting about that, I'm just going to go briefly over the last national polls. Now, remember, I talked about this, and I said, if you go back to my last video, you're going to see that I thought that these polls were probably the most accurate. The Atlas Intel and TIPP, that I thought these were the most accurate. And with plus one and even, I had it at, I forecast even, and it was and partly because I was using some of these other polls, I wasn't able to tell. But now that we've seen the numbers, it's pretty clear who was wrong and how wrong they were. And in fact, in the end, a lot of these polls were just as wrong as they were 4 years and 8 years ago. They still undercounted Donald Trump's support, and they'll never get another opportunity because this is it. But let's go over like these two plus Harris plus 2 in this Ipsos and Harris X poll. That means they're off by about 4 points. 4 points is like beyond the margin of error. So if you're beyond the margin of error, that means you have a fundamental flaw in the assumptions that you made. And this is especially the case for this NPR PBS Marist poll, which was off by 4 points. Now you remember, if you saw my last video, you saw that I said I thought this poll was just wrong, that it was oversampling Democrats, and in fact, and it was really a lot of wishful thinking that was going on. So I've learned a lot about this. I've certainly have learned. I think I'm going to be. I accepted that maybe all of these polls were roughly accurate, and that they were just, it turns out they're still biased. Not as bad as last time. Last time was terrible. Not as bad, but still outside. They made fundamental errors in terms of the assumptions they made about their models. Now, let's turn to the map with the results. And what we show, let's go over the states. I don't have it just roughly how I got these two states wrong in my final. Wisconsin and Michigan, I've covered them up. 0.8 and 1.4. Wisconsin 0.8%, Michigan 1.4%. That I had about 0.3%. I was about off 1%. It was within a margin of error kind of thing. It wasn't that bad. And because I was counting, accepting certain polls that I had no reason to reject them just because they were giving something that I wasn't sure if it was real. I had to accept that it was real. So I learned. Pennsylvania is coming in about 1.9. I had about 1. Georgia, I think I had about 2.7, about 2.3. North Carolina was the one, I think I had 1.3. It's about 2 points over. So that was an interesting state. Definitely, Trump a bit overperformed compared to my expectations. I think the expectations of the polls and finishing and Trump carried all 7 swing states. And remember what I said? I thought, okay, I had the polls, but I said it's going to be bigger than that. Nevada 3.7, Arizona, they're only about 80% counted, but about 5.5. I said they'd be between 4 and 6, based on my analysis of the early voting. I think this vindicates the approach that I took for early voting, and I'm going to use this in the future. Definitely, I think 2 years from now, I think people aren't using this to make some serious forecasts. And I heard people saying, "Oh, I wouldn't use it. I wouldn't." I think they're missing out on something. So it's like there's a loose ball, and you might as well pick it up. But let's go over a few other states that did vote for Kamala Harris, but that the numbers, some of them were quite close. New Hampshire actually ended up only 2.8. And that came at the end. Trump was down by about 4 points all night long. Right at the end, as the end of the count, it pulled within 2 points. Virginia was close all night. I had it at about 5.8. It ended up 5.2. This 3.7 in the Nebraska 2nd District, I said I thought it would be about like 4 to 5. So definitely closer. And again, based on the early vote analysis. But the one big state that I was really a surprise, New Mexico about a 1.5 closer, 5.5. I thought it'd be 7. So within it be 5.5. Minnesota 4.2. I thought it'd be 3. So, those are in the ballpark. But the one big surprise was New Jersey. New Jersey, most people in looking at polls thought it would be more double digits. It's only 5 points. It's a 5-point margin. That's interesting. Maybe the Hispanic vote. It's one of these things I'll have to look at more later. But that's a big margin. That's a for the Democrats to only win New Jersey by 5 points. Trump is actually making inroads into Democratic territory. Some of the edges, New Hampshire, Minnesota, Virginia a little bit, but New Jersey, absolutely. 7.4 in Maine. I think that was a little bit higher than I expected. But absolutely a great night for Trump. As I say, a 2-point win in the popular vote. 312 to 226 in the Electoral College, which is what I was saying most of the time until the last day. And so now I'm going to turn to the Hispanic vote shift, because this is what I think the big story of this election is the shift in Hispanic vote. And I'm going to start with 3 states that did not they were not swing states. They did not play a role in the outcome, but but these shifts that were, I think, significantly driven by the swing in shifts in Hispanic vote moved Trump into the lead in the national popular vote. Let's go over these numbers. This is Southern California. Out here, the biggest one out here. This is San Bernardino County. 7.6. Los Angeles, Los Angeles County, 7.1. Big Hispanic population, Los Angeles. Big Hispanic population in San Bernardino. Here down in Imperial, that's Imperial County, 7.3. That's a big shift. Of course, that's the Mexican border. That's a pretty big Hispanic, Latin American Latino population there. This is Kern County's Bakersfield. but that's the southern end of the Central Valley. That's 6.2, and definitely those are the areas with the most Hispanic. But you've seen other areas where there's some Hispanic, but other the swings. This is Orange County 4.8, 4.6. I think there's less Hispanic, but some there. Ventura County 4.7. They're probably similar, and the vote swings were quite similar. But you go up the coast, you see these two counties much less change. That's Santa Barbara 2.7, more white, much less Hispanic. These are more affluent, significant white population, significantly well off, more well off in terms of the overall population. So Hispanic, we can see here Hispanic vote driving some significant changes we could see in Southern California. I'm going to move to Southern Texas, and there's just fascinating. Now, Southern California, I know because I lived there as a I know Los Angeles quite well, having lived there when I was young. Um, so that's familiar. Southern Texas is not, but I do know about Southern Texas. This is Mexico. This is all Mexico here, and this is the Rio Grande, and this is along the Mexico-U.S. border. And these counties that touch the border are all heavily Hispanic and Latino, Latin America, Mexican. Of course, the people have lived there for generations. It has had a Mexican, Latin character for decades, several generations at least, if not, and probably going back much longer because of the proximity to the country. But look at these changes here, and I don't know these counties, but 14.2 over 10. This one with Laredo, 12.7. Here's at 10.6, 10, almost 10. The average there is over 10 points swing from 2020 to 2024. That's a big change. That's a 10-point swing in all these counties in just one election. Now you move away from the border and you see it gets a little bit less. So that's what I just wanted to give you a flavor of what's going on along the border. Now, Texas did have an increase. There's lots of Hispanics throughout Texas, but I wanted to focus on this because 8 years ago, 2016, this was all blue. All these counties were all blue. This was Democrat territory. Traditionally, generations of that it voted Democratic. One would have thought that a Republican would, no more carry and do well. I think George Bush did okay, but that was temporary. This is permanent. This is the picture of realignment. And if you don't believe me, I'm going to show you a county. This is Starr County. And the Trump percentage share in Starr County between 2016 and 2024. 2016, just 8 years ago, the same person, Donald Trump, got 18.9%, less than 20%. He gained 28 percentage points in one election to 2020, but he picked up another 10 points. He went from like 20%, less than 20%, that's nothing, to now he has a majority of the votes in this. This is the most Hispanic county in the United States, 97% Hispanic. Last time I voted Republican was 1892, which ironically enough was when Grover Cleveland won his second term and the only other president to win non-consecutive terms. So it's the next Republican that would do it under the same, ironically, under the same circumstance. This is the face of realignment. This isn't going away. And if Donald Trump does anything to meet the desires of the people that have made these shifts, they are going to stay red for the next 100 years, the rest of our lives and the lives of probably almost anybody alive. This kind of change. This is going to be in 60, 80 years from now, people are going to talk about this election and what happened in places like this. Southern Florida, the numbers are less, but the implication is gigantic. Now we got 7.6. These are, but here the three main counties here. This is Palm Beach, affluent. That's where Donald Trump actually has his residence. This is Broward County. There's a significant black vote in here, up 6.3% 2020 to 2024. But here, Miami-Dade, 9.1%, the biggest. And you can see that's red. That is from the CNN map. It turned red. It voted for Donald Trump. A majority voted for Donald Trump. Let's look at the actual numbers, because this is absolutely fascinating. The change in the over the last 8 years. 8 years ago, Miami-Dade, 34% to 46%, 55%, a gain of 12, and then 9 percentage points. That's a 42% swing in margin. 42% marginal swing in 8 years, in 2 elections from 2016. Now, what's important about this is, unlike the Starr County, yeah, that's dramatic, but Starr County is this little county, little tiny county. You know, this is a big city. Miami's a big city. It's one of America's large. It's a significant city. It's a major city. So you have a major city that has gone from a third for Trump, and by his last election, 55%, a comfortable majority. And Florida is now red again. All they have to do is do anything towards meeting the desires of people that voted for him, and Florida is red for the next 100 years. This is the kind of again, this is a transformational shift. This is transformation, right, looking at us in the face. Now I want to close this video up by talking about the black vote shift. It's not as profound, but there's a significance, and we're beginning to see a movement. And I want to point out the important personal significance is because I'm old enough to remember Jim Crow. My first election that I remember was 1964, and 1964 was the big shift of black people to vote for the Democrats because of the Civil Rights Act. That Barry Goldwater in that election supported the Civil Rights Act, and almost 100% black. From that election on, it's like 90% every election has been. That's changed in this election. It's not as much, but there's a steady change that we've seen during the Trump elections. And we'll start out, we're going to go 3 northern cities: Chicago, Philadelphia, and Detroit. And we're going to go to these 3 big northern cities with large black populations, people that have migrated, many of them migrated north decades ago. Chicago went from 12.3, 2016, 15.8 to 21.8. It's up 9.5 points, a 9.5% increase. It's still low. It's still only 21%, but 8 years ago, it only got 12%. So these swings are this is a big swing, and this is one of the things that drove Illinois. Harris carried only by about 8.5, 8.6, something like that points, almost into the my likely category. Huge, and it was 17 points 4 years ago. So from 17 points to less than 9 points, and this is one of the reasons, because Chicago is the city. It's a big chunk of the state of Illinois, and this margin is 6, but this is a 12-point swing in terms of margin. So a 12-point swing in margin there that drove down a big change. 9-point margin helped drive a 9-point marginal change in Illinois. I have not looked at it for the state deeply. That's something I certainly want to do, because the potential is at some point Illinois could be back to being a swing state. I remember in like 1968, 1960, that was a swing state. Illinois was a swing state back then. So times are changing. Times are changing. We're going to look at Philadelphia, as I mentioned. That's the city that I lived in. I live abroad, by the way. I live abroad. I live in Tokyo, Japan, but I vote in. I lived in Philadelphia, and I vote in Philadelphia, and so I certainly keep tabs on what's going on there. But we see this again, not as large, but it's a steady increase, 15.4 to 20.1, and it's played a role in reducing that margin. There was also lower Democratic turnout. It reduced the margin, and it helped turn Pennsylvania red in this election. So it's a smaller change, but it's a change, and it's slowly changing. And I don't think this is going to stop. Again, if Donald Trump does anything for Black people, these it's going to begin at some point. It might be a tip. There might be a tipping point, like what we've had with the Hispanic vote. Maybe it'll take another election or two before that happens. Democrats got to worry. I'm going to talk now about Detroit City and Wayne County. And again, I haven't mentioned this, but this is where I was born, so I certainly am interested in this. But there's and I'm going to tell you how Detroit and Wayne County played a big role in Kamala Harris losing Michigan in this election. And what we're going to focus on here is the change. Here's Detroit City, the votes. You can see it's small. It's less. It's still less than 10%. So it's not. It's a small amount. It's small, but the movement has started. The movement towards the Republicans has started, even in a deeply, heavily Black city, the huge Black majority, like the city of Detroit. What I'm going to focus on are the changes between 2020 and 2024 in numbers. So the change, Trump went up almost 7,000 in Detroit. Kamala Harris down 21,000. The votes are almost all counted, so there might be some slight changes. That's almost 10% decline in votes. Trump up, but overall it's just probably fewer voters. But this is an interesting number. We're going to see with this, because there was also an increase in others, and this is a protest vote, and this represents votes that didn't want to vote for Kamala Harris but couldn't vote for Trump. And now we go to the rest of Wayne County, that's outside of the city of Detroit, which is now where the bulk of the votes lie. The changes were even bigger, and where Trump gained 17,000 votes in Wayne County, ex-Detroit, Kamala Harris was down over 40,000 votes. Here's the big, what I think is a big number, up 14,000. This is that protest vote. This is the protest vote in the Arab, particularly Arab communities, probably some Black, definitely some Black, but more in the Arab communities. Those votes would have gone for Kamala Harris, and had not been what happened in the Middle East, in Gaza. That's a direct impact, and it's almost as large. That tells you these are the numbers of people that moved away from the Democrats. You see this number adds up to 31,000. Overall, a little bit of a decline maybe. That's the shift from the Democrats to either these others as a protest vote and directly to Donald Trump. If we add these numbers up, that's 20. Trump gained 23,000 in Wayne County, and then another 17,000. That's about 40,000 gained that were not that probably went away from the Democratic candidate. So that's plus 40,000 gain either by Trump or by others. And the Democrats lost 62,000. So 40 plus 62 is 102,000. The margin of victory, Trump's margin of victory in Michigan, is 79,000. 79,000. The shift just in Wayne County, Detroit and the rest of Wayne County, is greater than the amount that Kamala Harris lost Michigan by. Just this cost her Michigan. Just this cost her Michigan. Now, finally, I'm going to go over the North Carolina black population share, and look at, for these heavily black counties in North Carolina, just to look at the percentage changes. And the thing to look at here, you see this, from 2016 to 2024, Trump's statewide percentage change was only 0.5 points. Not very much, really. But look at all these are all rural counties that we're looking through here, from here. All of these areas are rural counties. These are small towns, rural. There's a lot of rural, and there's a lot of black people live in rural. This is the rural South. This is the Bible Belt of the deep South, coming from Virginia down through there, that goes through South Carolina into Georgia, through the middle of Georgia, and then into Alabama, Mississippi, and eastern Texas. That's your deep South. These percentages are almost all these cases are more than 0.5 points. It's small, except for these two counties. And what's the difference between these two counties, and why are they different? This is Durham, right here. That's Durham County. That's a big city, or large city, that's in the Tech Triangle. And this is Greensboro. This -0. So these are cities. These are urban areas. The urban areas, black people in North Carolina did not change, as very little change. And that was also true Mecklenburg County, which is this county right here, which is a fairly large black population, but not as large as these rural populations. But this did help, that the shift, and it certainly helped it didn't change North Carolina in this election, but it certainly it made Trump's margin of victory safer. And it's the shift of black rural vote. So this is interesting. If you're a Democrat, I'm a registered Democrat, by the way. I am a registered Democrat. Democrats need to do some real reflection. This election should tell, if it doesn't tell these people, these coastal ivory tower types, and media types, that something is wrong. There needs to be a Donald Trump type person in the Democratic Party to take over and throw these people out. That's my thought on that. But with that, I'm going to close with this. If you watched to the end, thank you for watching. If you like this, please subscribe. I'm going to have more content about the election. I'm going to have other material going forward. I'm probably be about a week before my next video. But please look forward to that. Thank you for watching, and we will see you next time. Bye.